Now, the world's biggest securities watchdog has proposed the first global set of standards for regulating crypto assets. IOSCO's members include most of the world's market regulators, including the SEC in the US. His recommendations follow a series of scandals in the crypto industry and the collapse of the exchange FTX, whose millions of clients are believed to have collectively lost billions of dollars. IOSCO's recommendations urge regulators around the world to cooperate to control companies with operations across borders. Well, I'm pleased to say we can speak to Martin Moloney, who is Secretary-General of IOSCO. Thanks a lot for joining us on DW Business. And I'd just like to begin with the problem that the proposals are aiming to solve. So what is wrong with the way that cryptocurrencies are or are not regulated at the moment, and crypto assets in general?
Are or not is the question, I think. If you look at the last 10 years, there's been a significant sources of indecision on many people's parts. Some people saying, this is a new technology, leave it alone and maybe it'll do great things. And on the other side of the spectrum, you had people saying, this is a mechanism for criminal activity, do not give it the respectability of regulating it, leave it alone. They have both tended to leave it alone, and only certain jurisdictions who sought some sort of advantage have tended to move on and regulate it. The problem is there's huge gaps in this regulation, and it's not really responding to the type of model we're dealing with, which is highly complex, integrated businesses with huge conflicts of interest in them, directed directly at retail clients on a cross-border basis. It's a formula for problems, and huge numbers of people have lost large amounts of money. And really, we're saying this needs to stop, and we need similar standards all across the globe.
Yes, from what you're saying there, the case is here that it's people who aren't necessarily the most savvy that are getting involved in the crypto market, and I suppose they need protecting. What is it that has initiated the move now? Because as you've talked about, there's been a reluctance to accept crypto assets as a legitimate thing to be regulated.
Yeah, we actually started down this path at March last year because we just felt there was an accumulation of issues really dating right back to the ICO craze back in 2017 and 2018, which over a number of years had led to such losses across the globe. And then we saw some well-intentioned efforts to develop regulation in different places, which we thought wasn't adequate, and that's what sent us down in this direction. But then after we started, you see huge events like the FTX event, which really disclosed to everyone the potential for abuse here and for really badly run business models to emerge, and that's what's driving this.
Yeah, you mentioned FTX there. Do you think that's something that could have been avoided?
You know, in a well-regulated environment, you shouldn't get outcomes like that. And it is quite notable that the part of the FTX business that was actually domesticated in the United States and overseen by US regulators did not suffer from the kind of problems that FTX itself faced. So yes, in principle, you should be able to avoid that kind of experience, but only on the basis of very significant changes in the way businesses are run. The kind of conflicts of interest we saw in the FTX model, they just shouldn't exist anywhere.
IOSCO talks about the need for a global approach to this, but given that regulation is done on a country-by-country level, does that not just mean that the system is fixed up to fail?
Well, it's a huge challenge, there's no doubt. And there's two sides to fixing it. On the one hand, our core work as global standard setters is to set a baseline and then ask every country to look at how they do regulation and to build up a bit of pressure on them to get their regulation into a good, defensible model. The second aspect of the solution is actually cooperation among supervisors. After you've got your regulatory frameworks in place and you've got people like crypto exchanges trading on a cross-border basis, the regulators have got to cooperate and talk to each other about what it is they're seeing and take action to make sure that people are protected on a cross-border basis. And in our proposals, we've laid out both sides of that and how it can be done.
So how can it be done?
So in terms of the actual standards, the way to do it is to not get diverted by the different legal frameworks in different countries. Is it a security? Is it not a security? Just look at the outcomes. Look at what's actually been achieved for investors in terms of 5 or 6 key parameters that we've laid out. If crypto is actually being used as an investment product by investors rather than just as a gambling product, then those investors have got a right to markets which are well supervised. They've got a right to custody arrangements where they always know where their money is, how much they've got, what's going to happen if the exchange goes bankrupt, and so on. And we've laid out all those details of how those standards should operate. And then it's up to countries to test what they've done. And frankly, I suspect many countries will draw the conclusion that what they have done is not adequate to the standards we set out, and there is more to do. And on the other hand, we are urging countries, and we will work carefully with countries to set up supervisory colleges and other arrangements for cooperation between supervisors, so that if you find yourself faced with an exchange which says, well, I don't live anywhere, I don't belong anywhere, I don't have authorization anywhere, that you take action to actually bring them to heel, in a sense, and make them disclose their business models to regulators and develop a proper relationship with a supervisor who's there to protect the retail investor.
You talk about regulators needing to share ideas. Is anywhere getting it right already?
I would think in terms of cooperating in relation to the supervision of crypto, I'd have to say I haven't come across an arrangement I'd say is really strong between countries. But it's quite notable, for example, that we have seen among our members in Asian countries where there's a very significant interest in crypto, a strong push by those regulators to actually increase their cooperation among themselves. And that's a very positive development. We already run a system for global exchange of information in relation to enforcement cases. And that's a pretty good model to build on. We'd like to see more people doing that kind of thing and extending it into other areas of supervision, not just enforcement. Do it even before you get to the point of enforcement.
Just lastly then, how confident are you that IOSCO's proposals will be taken up?
Well, our record is that our proposals are usually taken up by everybody. It can take a little bit of time because changing legal systems takes years. So, but you've got to start somewhere. So I'm pretty confident we will get there. I'm also pretty sure it will take us some time, a period of perhaps years of engagement with jurisdictions to actually talk through with them what they've achieved, what they haven't achieved, and how to get up to the right level. So we will get there. But it's a hard struggle because, as you say, it's a globally fragmented market with lots of jurisdictions doing things their own way.
OK, Martin Moloney, Secretary-General of IOSCO. Thank you very much for joining us on DW Business.
Great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much.